Right, let's come and see your wonderful faces. Good morning. Good morning. I can see lots of familiar faces and some new ones too. Say hello, and welcome. So we're here for the second session of the Coaching Summit. If you missed it, Sally was on this morning at 9 o'clock sharing her Shine Tool, which was a fabulous session, and that will be on replay a little bit later in the summit. And we're joined this morning by Vicki and Ayesha. So Vicki is an executive coach and practicing solicitor who's going to share some of her story of core values with you. And Ayesha is a career coach for working parents and host of the Parent Equation podcast. So if you are a parent or a carer and you are looking for advice and guidance, do check out Ayesha's podcast. I'm sure she'll do a plug in her session. And we're here this morning talking about core values and how core values can also help us with a career change. And first up is going to be Vicki. So I'm going to pop the spotlight on Vicki and hand over to you, Vicki, to share with us what you have in store this morning.
Thanks very much, Zoe. Can you see my slides okay?
We can, yes.
Excellent. First hurdle over. I feel like technically if I can get that right, then everything's going to go smoothly. So good morning, everyone. I'm really glad you could be here today, and I hope you've enjoyed the summit so far. I know I made a lot of the sessions yesterday, and they were great fun, and lots of really interesting bits and pieces coming out. So Ayesha and I are talking today about core values coaching for confident career change, and I'm going to focus on the values part, and Ayesha's going to take you forward into the career change section. But just as it would help me if you could pop into the chat just a yes or no if you spent any time reflecting on your own core values. So yes, if you've thought about them, reflected on them, worked on them in your own coaching. No, if you've heard the phrase but don't know what it means or hasn't done anything. And perhaps if, because I've not got the chat in front of me, if perhaps Zoe or Ayesha could let me know what the responses are when they come in.
Tons of yeses.
Oh, good. Good, that's really positive. You'd be surprised, quite often I do this and about 10% have thought about core values previously, so it's good to know people have already had that. And all yeses, fantastic, good news. So what I'm looking at today then is core values, how we can identify them properly, understand them, and then use them effectively, because that's really what they're there for. And core values are within us even if we don't know what they are, and sometimes they're employed with less control if we don't have that handle on them. So a very brief background, because it's relevant to this. As Zoe mentioned, I'm a practicing solicitor. I have been since 2011, plus my training before that. And when I worked in private practice law firms, I liked a lot of what I did. I enjoyed my role. I was promoted. I was moving up the ladder. And I enjoyed a lot of the colleagues I worked with and quite a few of the clients and cases I worked with. But something just felt a bit disconnected, and I didn't know what it was. I just didn't feel quite fulfilled. And when I was listening to Ian's talk yesterday on aligning your career with your values, something really struck me when he said you can get to a point where you've progressed quite well, your experience is better, you're taking on more responsibility, but actually as a result of focusing on that, you can sometimes lose sight of your values, or they're just not quite as front and center. So I did a bit of work on my values and realized that I'd shifted quite far away from them. And I didn't want to give up everything I'd learned. I wanted to keep that, but I also wanted to live more in accordance and alignment with my own values. So that was the beginning of my journey to be a consultant solicitor rather than full-time employed, and also run a coaching and mentoring business, which I do through my company, Victoria Melius. So what we're going to look at today is what core values are, because I think most people have heard about them, most people know about them, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper into what they are and why they're so important. Going to look at identifying them, because even if people have got some good ones, which it sounds like most of you do, which is fantastic, there might be others that you haven't thought about, and I'm hoping this gives you a bit of pause for reflection and a bit of time to think about that. And we're going to look at how understanding values can help us make confident decisions, and Ayesha's going to then take us forward into a really practical and quite big decision example about that. So what are core values? They are part of us. They are our fundamental foundational beliefs, often formed at quite a young age. I read quite a few articles saying that they're often set by the ages of sort of 5, 6, 7 years old. So they're with us most of our lives. They're the things that are really, really important to us, and they define who we are. But having started so young, it's likely that those beliefs are somewhat somewhat influenced by those around us, our parents, caregivers, teachers, wider family, because at that stage we haven't lived our own life experiences, so we're taking those values from people around us, and for the most part that's fine. We might learn values about the importance of family, about respect, about trust, about honesty, and those are all really good things to take with us into life. But it's not really until we've gone out into the world a bit more, as we grow up through school and through formal education and get jobs and have our own families, that we can even really begin to think about where those core values have whether they're still the same as they were when we were 5 years old, or whether they've morphed and more things are important to us now. So it's that personal code, that way of living that we want to take going forward. Those are our core values. And they're particularly important for a few reasons. One, that they guide our attitudes, behaviours and decisions throughout our lives. And having strong core values, understanding them, can provide us with greater clarity and certainty about the decisions we make and the way we act. And they enable us to live a more fulfilling life. But quite interestingly, if our core values aren't understood, if we don't really know what they are, or if we're muddled in that, there's a much greater chance of procrastination, disconnection, and uncertainty. And quite often I speak with people who say, I don't know why, but I'm quite disappointed in myself, or, I've been procrastinating and I haven't been able to move forward on this particular decision, which I should find easy. But quite often what it is there's a disconnect between their value, which they might not fully understand, and the action which they're not taking or struggling to take. So now that you've all told me you've thought about your core values, I'd love to know what some of them are. So if you're willing, pop into the chat just a few comments, just a few words that crop up when you think about your core values. You can put as few or as many as you'd like in. And perhaps, Ayesha, if you could let me know some of the words that come up.
Freedom, fun, femininity, connection and freedom. Oh, another freedom, balance, learning, connection, freedom. Freedom is the value of the day.
It is.
Loyalty, integrity, respect, honesty, balance, family, connection, growth, openness, honesty, kindness, generosity, family. Well, they're all coming through very fast. Justice. Justice, that's a big one.
That's an excellent one.
Control and peace, gratitude, fun, humility, growth, connection, also quite a big one. Understanding, achievement, more family, independence, compassion, connection. I think connection, growth seem to be quite big.
Yeah, and freedom, as was said quite a few times. So no, that's really helpful, thank you. And feel free to keep putting them in, because it might be that as you're putting them in, someone else looks at that and thinks, oh, that ignites something in me, which could be important for them to explore. So thank you all for sharing. And actually, when I did this exercise and started thinking about my values as well, a lot of the same things were coming up for me. Family, spending more time with family and people I love, freedom and flexibility. And this was before COVID, when flexibility became something we all take for granted now. We have that flexible, for the most part, that flexible way of working. We've all become a bit more able to pivot and change in the way we deliver our services. But when I was full-time employed in a law firm, flexibility wasn't really an option. So when I realised that flexibility and freedom were part of my values, that was how I started to realise that I wasn't in the right place. I might have been doing something that was working for me, and I might have been doing something I enjoyed, but there was something that was stopping me really flourishing. And for me, it was around freedom and flexibility. So I'm glad that people are, are able to talk about that so much, and that freedom is still such an important value. So this is really, I think it's a good exercise to do, even if you know what your values are, but also for those of you watching, or those of you watching on the replay who haven't quite nailed down what the values are. These are a few top tips which I've worked with my clients over the years, and this has helped them to flesh things out. So firstly, go with your gut. If something rose to the top when I said, what's your value? And it just popped out, then that's a really good indicator that it is a value. And what's really important to you, or even what's non-negotiable. And I think particularly looking at people you admire and respect, your friends, colleagues, close family that you admire and respect, specifically what is it about them that you wish you had. And when I was working on this myself, my coach said to me, think about what makes a good person. So if you had a completely blank human and you were able to put the values that you thought were crucial into that human, what would they be? And I found it really difficult at first, but then I started coming up with lots of values. I had sort of 10, 20, 30 values that went down. And then once I'd done that, I could take away the noise values, the values I thought should be there because of society or culture or other people's opinions, and just whittle them down to what I thought was really, really important. And also, if you work for a great organization, what is it about that organization that makes it great? And I raise this because I've got a good friend who said to me that her values are really supported by her organization. And I said, that's fantastic and really interesting. What do you mean? And she said her values are around family first and health first. And her organization, which employs several hundred people internationally, have said to all of their employees, it's health and family first. So when they interviewed my friend, they said, these are our values and we live by that. So if you have a family emergency, if you have a health issue, we will support and prioritize that over anything else. We will redistribute your work, we'll support you, we'll give you paid time off. And my friend now is a leader of a team of about 150 people. When she brings them in for conversations, they often say that's one of the things that draws them to the organization, but is it really true? And she says, yes, because she's lived it. She's had the time off when needed, and she feels that that organization has got her back, not just, you know, saying it as lip service, but actually does have it. And she's worked for them for 14 years, so she has experienced times when she's needed that. So if you've worked with a great organization, what is it that makes it great? Because those probably are values that you find quite important. So I know that Ayesha's going to talk more about this, and I don't want to run into her time or her presentation at all, but understanding your core values can help you to make confident decisions. It helps you with your personal code of values so that you can set life rules according to your personal values. It means if kindness is a value and you have to have a difficult conversation with someone, you can say, well, it's coming from a place of kindness because that's my value. So how will I deal with that conversation? How will I structure it? How will I keep calm about it? Because it's coming from a place of kindness. How will that come through? I like the analogy of a compass. My friend Casey and I were talking about this when I did a masterclass with her a few months ago, about the idea that your core values are like your internal compass. It can show you where you want to go. It can help you if you get stuck or lost, and it can lead you to really exciting places. But as with a compass, if you don't know where it is or how to use it, how to engage with it, how to read it, it's of limited value. And also it can be affected by other factors. So as a compass might be affected by magnetic fields, your personal values could be affected by the people that you live and work closely with, or it could have been affected by your parents, and you may have values of theirs which are important but probably aren't your values. They're not your most crucial values. So have a think about that. And I always encourage people to reflect on their values, because they do, I mean, our core values might not change from the time we set them as an adult. They probably won't change hugely, but there may be times when those values are extended and include different things. So the priority and the order of those in terms of how important each one is to you might change. And it's worth thinking, if you've got a list of 3 or 4 or 5 values, you know, if you had to put them in order of priority, which one's first? And over time, that priority can change. So hopefully, you know, understanding your values and living life in accordance with them leads to greater connection, fulfillment, and purpose. So I'm going to pass to Ayesha very shortly, but I'm just putting up a slide that has some information. I have a free core values download, which is on my website, and I will drop the link into the chat function later. And I also have a Facebook community if you are or know of professionals that are looking to do things a bit differently, because there are so many out there, and I speak to more and more every day saying I wish I had a space to talk about this when it was happening for me. So if you want to get in touch or stay in touch, please do. And if you want to take a photograph, my contact details are on this slide here, so feel free to get in touch. And Ayesha, I'll pass over to you and have a look at the chat for you.
Thank you. Okay, share my screen. There we go. Can everybody see that? Yes.
Yeah, it's there now.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Vicky, and welcome everybody to a very hot day. I said to Vicky and Zoe earlier, I'm quite glad it's not smelly vision or smell-o-vision, because it could be quite a different experience for all of us if it were. So it's not. So I hope you're coping in the heat. So as Vicki said, I suppose the foundations, I think, of great and confident career change are understanding your values, living by your values, and making conscious decisions around your values for your career change. So that's what I'm going to take you through today. So just a little bit about me, and I suppose why values were so important to me in my career change. So I was in marketing for 23 years, quite a long time. And I think for most of that, I actually wasn't really living by my values from a work perspective. And what tends to happen is we all get swept up in our careers. 23 years is quite a long time to get swept along. And we often fall into careers unintentionally. I certainly did. Or even if it's intentional, if it's over a long period of time, we don't really take the time to pause and reflect and think, actually, what are my core values? And is this career, this path, this company aligning to my values? So I think it's valuable for everybody, whether you're happy in your career or not, to take some time out after today's sessions, use this as an impetus, and to sit down and reflect on your values. So using what Vicki's talked about, and actually lots of other speakers today and yesterday have talked about values, taking all of that information, sitting down with yourself and thinking, right, do I understand what my core values are? And do they align with where I am now in my career? So we'll go through that in a minute. When I realised that my career was not aligning with my values, I decided to leave. Quite a long process to leaving. It wasn't a kind of rash decision. And I retrained as a coach so that I could support people like me and where I was maybe 5-10 years ago. So I now run my own coaching practice, supporting parents through career change. And I'll come on to different types of career change. It doesn't always have to be a dramatic change, like mine potentially was. It could be a change of organisation or a change of role or a promotion could be a career change. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. So what we'll cover is whether a career change is right for you, how to leverage your values, and I can't see the bottom bullet because the chat thingy is covering it up, but there's something under there that I'm sure you can all read, so that's fine. We'll just go with it. 5 tips, that's what's there. 5 tips on how to make a successful career change. So I love this quote. It's fairly, I think you may have seen it before, Steve Jobs' quote. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. And that's so important. We all have choice, we all have control over where our lives are heading, and we all have time, and it's never too late. You know, I was in my mid-40s when I changed career, so it's never too late, and you can change your life in a really positive way and make it align to your values if that's what you need. So the first question I think for a lot of people is whether career change is even the right thing for you to do, and it doesn't have to be, and I think that's again part of the choice. You don't have to make a dramatic career change, but you do have to live your life according to your values. So understanding where that might take you is the first step. So a few questions you could ask yourself. The first thing is, is evaluating your situation. So is it painful where you still are? Is your job, your company, your career path, does it feel painful to you? Does it bring you discomfort? Do you wake up every day thinking this is the best thing in the world or not? And if not, can you still tolerate it? So maybe now is not quite the right time, but maybe it will be the right time in the future. So where are you on that path? Do you still like your industry, like your role, like the people you work with, like the culture of the organisation, which I think is vitally important? Are you drained and demotivated by your work, or do you leap out of bed in the morning and think it's the best thing in the world for you to be going to? Do you find yourself dreaming of doing something else on a regular basis? Are you envious of other people's careers? And this last one's also hidden. How can I move this little box here? Oh, there we are. There we go, done it. And are you staying in your job just because it feels safe? And I think, again, this is where that swept away feeling comes from. We are all creatures of habit. It's human nature to stay in our comfort zone. We'll often stay in our comfort zone because we know what we're doing. It feels safe. We don't want to feel like we're going to fail or take a big risk. So we stay within that comfort zone and we don't push ourselves out of that into learning and into growth. But that can keep us constrained in our careers and not allow us, I guess, to really thrive and flourish. So I'll come on to it in a second. About 4 stages in my mind of where you could be in your career change. And what I want you to do in a second, when I've outlined the 4 stages, in the chat box, if you could say 1, 2, 3 or 4, depending on where you think you are in your career change journey. So 1 is right at the beginning. You've had a few initial thoughts about maybe making a change, but it's still very much just up here somewhere, nothing planned. 2 is you have ideas, maybe you've got tons of ideas, maybe you've got too many ideas, but you certainly haven't put any plans into action. Number 3 is you have started to narrow it down. So you've started to narrow down the field, and some of the career options are becoming a bit clearer to you. And number 4 is you are ready. You're ready to change. You know what you're going to do. You might even have a plan by now. So the 4 stages from 1 to 4. So it'd be great to see what those are. 3, 4, 4. Oh, we've got lots of 3s and 4s. Okay, quite a lot of 2s. It's a mixed bag. 3.5. 3.5 is good. There probably are about 10, 15, 20 stages to career change. But for the purpose of this, I just narrowed it down to 4. So quite a lot of 3s and 4s, actually, which is good, which means this is a relevant session for everybody if they're thinking about making a career change. So the other way to think about it is visualize that change. And again, this is what coaches talk about all the time. Can you visualize that success? Can you visualize a life where your career change is absolutely successful? Whatever you've chosen to do has been successful. You're making money, you're happy, you've got the flexibility you wanted, all of the values are there, you're living a really values-led life as far as your career goes. Will you regret if you never try something different? So if we have this conversation, this session again in a year's time or 6 months' time, and you haven't made a change, how will you feel? You might feel okay with that, and that's also fine. But just it's worth reflecting on how will you feel if you don't make that change, or at least have a plan to make a change. I think that's the most important thing. At least start planning for it and start understanding what are those really small steps you can start towards that change. And it might take you 6 months, it might take a year. It took me 2 years probably actually to decide I really wanted to make a change. So there's no time pressure as long as you feel like you're having some forward momentum and you have a plan in place. But imagine that change is really, really important, because if you can visualize that and it makes you excited and brings you joy, then you probably need to do it. So I've got a quiz online. So the questions I just asked you about where you are on your journey, I've got a quiz which basically identifies you as to which one of those 4 steps you are. So there's 12 questions, 10 questions, very, very quick. It's also on School app. So for any coaches out there who are thinking about building their business, School app is a really interesting quiz platform. I should give it a plug or affiliate link or something. So careerchanges.schoolapp.com, we'll put it in the chat as well later, will help you start to think about where you might be on that journey and give you a few tips as to maybe what your next steps could be in that journey. So going back a step, back to the values that Vicky's introduced so well for us this morning, is how can you leverage your values to inform your career decisions and your career path? And there are a few different types of values when it comes to, I suppose, career specifically for this session. So there are 3 different types of values. There are probably more, but for this, 3 sort of headline ones, I guess. So your intrinsic values are a fundamental part of you. That is what makes you who you are. They are innate values that you probably live every day without really knowing that they're happening. So it could be, for a work perspective, creativity, sense of achievement, honesty, definitely being respected. Those are always there, sort of bubbling away under the surface. Your relationship values are based on external factors. So in a way, you can't maybe have less control over them because it's an external influence. So things like collaboration within a team, trust, leadership or friendship. So all of these are within a work context, values that will come from external sources. If those values are important to you, if collaboration, for example, and great leadership are solid values for you, and you are not feeling that in your current role, career, organisation, as Vicky said, you will feel a real sense of discomfort when you are basically making decisions, having conversations that are not aligning to those core values that you have and that you hold dear. But at the moment, because you maybe haven't taken the time to really sit down and reflect on the career aspect of your values, these may not be obvious to you. So doing the work to get these 3 sort of headlines out will be really, really important. And then lifestyle values, and maybe I said a rung below, they're not below, they're probably all equally important. So work flexibility, location, benefits, team structure. So they're they are practical, but they are values led. So the reason I changed career was absolutely for work flexibility, 100%, and for family, and for connection, and for creativity, because that's part of my intrinsic values. So a mixture of all of these three will give you a really good foundation as to understanding whether your current career path, your current role, your current team are aligned to those in values which you hold so dear. So some of the questions you could ask yourself once you've done this work are, does my current role or career path align with my core values? Does the organisation, and more importantly its culture, align with its core values? Because actually on paper, and I talk a lot about this with my coaching clients, on paper policies, procedures, the culture can look great, amazing. It draws you in to a company or career path or an organisation. But then actually when you live it and you're there every single day, does the culture actually back up what they're saying on paper? That's actually more important for sustainability and sustainable careers. And the other one, which I did, should I start my own business based on my values? Because actually I wasn't finding that my corporate career was aligning to my values, and I didn't really think there was an option. So I decided to start my own business, because then I could entirely build it around what I found valuable, what I stand for, the kind of person I am. And that's really important for me to keep going with. So 5 tips to get you started. And again, this is all about just starting that process, starting the process of, am I ready for a career change? If I am, what do I need to do next? And if I'm not now, that's fine, but how do I start planning towards it potentially for the future? So first thing, it's so important when it comes to any kind of change, is ask yourself the hard questions. So things like, what will the financial impact be? And this is, we all, especially at the moment, we all need an income of a certain level, but we all have different levels. So understand what that is for you, for your family, what the context is. For many of us, it'll be what will our family life look like? So if I do change career, yes, again, on paper, it might be the best thing to do. It might sound amazing, but actually when it comes down to the nitty gritty, is that the best thing for my family? What do I want to do more of, less of, or absolutely leave behind? And that was quite clear, again, when I went through the process with my marketing career, as the bits I wanted to keep, which were connection, human connection, helping people, empathy. So that's why coaching was a kind of natural fit. Less of marketing, basically. Much less of marketing, although, as everyone will know, running my own business is full of marketing, so I haven't managed to escape it that much. And then what do I want to do? None of. And just being clear on those 3 areas will again help inform what your career path could look like. And then what are my non-negotiables, which again Vicki mentioned, we all mention all the time in coaching, what am I not prepared to compromise on? What is so important to me that I will not compromise on that thing or things? And that's a really, really important question to ask, and quite a hard question. Think about how you can combine your passions. And again, for passions, think back to your childhood, think back to pre-family, pre-mortgages, pre-career. What really brought you joy? What brought you excitement? What energized you? All those passions that maybe, again, we've sort of let slip as life takes over. Obviously reflecting on your values, the purpose of this session. Then think about how you can really leverage your strengths. And the way I coach and a lot of my colleagues coach is focusing on your strengths, not dwelling on what we perceive to be weaknesses, because we all have tons of strengths. And if we just optimize those, that drives us forward. We don't need to dwell on what we think are the negative areas. So what are your strengths and how can you leverage those? And what is your purpose? And purpose is a big word. Again, there are lots of models that we all use in coaching to help understand your purpose. But essentially is, what am I really good at? What do I love? What can I be paid for? What do I stand for? What brings me joy, fulfillment, satisfaction? What's my mission in life? All those sort of questions to ask yourself about what your purpose is. So think about how you can combine all of those into a career path that suits you, which will give you energy. Brainstorm what motivates you and brings you real joy. And again, it's very easy to get swept up in negativity. And especially if you're in a career you don't really love or enjoy, there could be some toxicity around that. So brainstorm what absolutely brings you joy, what fills up your energy cup rather than what drains you. Then really key for any stage in career change is building up your network and your personal brand. So I left marketing thinking that my coaching business was just going to go switch on and was going to be full of clients because I'd had a very successful marketing career for 23 years. And guess what? It didn't happen. So I launched my business and then sat waiting and nothing happened. I thought, oh, not quite how I planned it. There's a bit of a reality check with that one. So having a network, not just your existing network, but a network that will align more to your future career is really, really important. So start to build that up now. Start to think, who are the influential people that you could start connecting with? peers in the same industry, sort of people who have made the change already, who you might be able to get some sort of mentor advice from. So start to build that network up when thinking about your career path going forward. And your personal brand. So again, depending on what you want to do, you may have to rebrand yourself. You may have to present yourself in a different way if you're doing something different to the last 15, 20, 30 years. So what's your personal brand going to be? And that links back into your purpose. What do you want to stand for? What do you want people to say about you when they hear your name mentioned? I suppose, what is your USP? What is your unique selling point? Why are people going to want to talk to you about something rather than the next person? So really, really important. And personal brand gives you also a really strong sense of self and self-belief if you know who you are and you know what your brand stands for. Fifth thing, most obvious, most important, make a plan. Whatever happens, just start planning these steps out. Like I said before, it could be a week away, 6 months away, 5 years away for the actual change to happen, but start putting those stepping stones in place. Set yourself some really small, achievable steps. Don't worry about the outcome too much. Don't get hung up on the outcome. Just keep trying to move yourself forward with a bit of momentum, with a bit of excitement, and celebrate every stepping stone that you get to. So celebrate every small achievement as you go on this journey towards career change. And then when you're ready, when you've asked the hard questions, when you have a plan in place, when you've assessed all the risks and you know exactly what you want to do, then you can take that step with confidence and with your eyes wide open. But the first thing is just make a plan and get yourself started. And the final quote, which I just love as well, it's possible and it's your turn, so go for it. It's never too late to become what you always wanted to be in the first place. Thank you. And my details are at the bottom there. I haven't got any fancy QR code. LinkedIn is the best place to find me, Ayesha Murray 75, or my website, ayeshamurray.com. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about career change. I think the more that we can all support each other, no strings attached, just help each other out, connect, again, build your network, put me in it, it's fine. So I'm more than happy to talk to anybody at any stage of career change.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ayesha. What a fabulous quote to finish on. I love that concept that it's your turn. So no need to hang around and wait for someone to give you permission, right? So
yeah, absolutely not. We have entire control and choice over what we want to happen in our lives.
Absolutely. So we've got about 5 minutes or so if anybody has any questions for either Vicki or Ayesha. I'm going to take the spotlight off. And yeah, does anybody have any questions? So feel free to drop them in the chat or to speak up, share your voices.
We've stunned them into silence, Ayesha.
Everyone's planning already.
I have a question, Ayesha. Hi, I'm Hayley.
Hi, Hayley.
I was just wondering about your clients. Are most of your clients ex-marketeers? Is that the niche that you found, or are you much broader than that these days?
Much broader. So from a marketing perspective, I advertise myself with a niche marketing because I do get clients because of the marketing link. But I would say actually they only make about 10% of my actual clients are from marketing.
Okay.
So they're all working parents, but from an absolute plethora of different industries and seniority levels, and always with the same underlying challenge of, can I be happy in my career and have a fulfilling family life? Always the same underlying desire.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Hayley. Anybody else got any questions? No. All right. Well, listen, thank you to both Vicki and Ayesha for this morning's session on values. It was absolutely fantastic to hear your take on it and to hear all of those top tips for career changes as well. And I can see in the chat there's a lot of gratitude and appreciation for you both this morning. So thank you so much. Next up, I should have this prepared actually. Usually I've got this ready. Let me.
I just saw a comment in the chat from Rosie about any tips for helping people whittle down the 30 or so values they come up with first round. There's sort of almost snuck by with all the other comments, but which are lovely, thank you. But I think that's a really great question, Rosie. And the way I've done it and the way I've worked with it with my coaching clients is to start with all of the values on a piece of paper and sort of sit with them for a little while until a few sort of bubble to the surface. And then, you know, when you ask each one, like, is this one of my most important things? Some of them will fall away. That doesn't mean they aren't things you care about, but they're just not your key sort of top 3 or 5, maybe 6 values maximum. I'd say probably any more than that, and we're just looking at general values that you hold or general beliefs. But you know, the ones that are so fundamental to the core of you, I think some of them will come up quite naturally, but it's helpful to actually have them next to each other on a page, because some of them will seem less important than others quite naturally. So that's how I'd start doing it, and sit with it, sleep on it a bit as well.
It's such a great tip. I remember someone saying to me once, like, which ones would you give away first? Like, imagine like handing them out, you know, like sharing your sweets out. There'll be some that you're like, I'm not giving those away. Like, those are mine. Like, I've got to keep those. So eventually you'll whittle it down and you'll feel very precious about a few of those values. So yeah, they're great tips. So it is Laura Sellers up next. And Laura is sharing with us how to embrace bumps in the leadership road with coaching. So another fantastic session. And Laura will be followed by Anna, Hewitt and Rosie. Rosie's the one who answered the question. And they're doing a coaching demo. That's at 12 o'clock, followed by Emma Cossey at 1 p.m, who is talking about coaching when you're neurodivergent. So I think that's going to be a fabulous session. And finishing the day is Jo Jackson with Behind the Scenes, talking about her career change from corporate career girl to coaching. So another great lineup. Thank you to you both, and thank you to all of you for joining us in this session today. Go and take a breath of fresh air, and we'll see you back here in just a moment for the next session. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Zoe.